Hi, I'm Jon Tsourakis with the Digital Mastermind. You're listening to The Climb. This is where agency owners and leaders tune in to get growth tips and strategies for growing their businesses. For the birds. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on episode 8 of The Climb. And today, much like last week, to be frank, and me learning on this journey or my climb in podcasting, we're going to be talking about acquisitions again. Do I find it wildly entertaining? No, but I do find it interesting. And based on where I'm at in the journey of my business and Dave's business as well, this is something that we're looking at, whether it's from our position of us acquiring others, or even, hey, I'll be frank, we could get acquired too, right? Anybody that says that, I think they probably either A, don't understand themselves enough, or B, they're probably lying. So, Dave, when I broach this topic, granted, what does this, what I'll say, how do you feel about actually where we are in this acquisition journey that you and I have been looking at other companies and potentially us, being acquired?
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting spot just because of our size and our revenue numbers. We're kind of in that either or category. And I think you phrased that really well, that we could easily be acquired. I mean, adding us to another company that's just slightly larger than us kind of puts us in the big boy category. So I think people are going to start looking at us. And to be honest, we've had probably 3 opportunities in the past to be acquired.
True.
And for whatever reason, we just didn't take it to the next level. It's not like we didn't get to the decision phase because I always felt I can grow this bigger. I wasn't done yet. And so I've compared to that last opportunity to now, we're 5x that. So no, it's an interesting topic to me. I know you didn't sound too excited about it, but I can go back to back on it.
I don't necessarily that I felt too excited. I think I'm just, self-shaming myself and just looking at the planning of it and saying, wow, like last year, we had a great conversation with Nicole and Mike about their acquisition. But I think that's the difference that we'll see today, right? Is they're focused on the cultural side of things from what I understand. And today I have a really strong inclination that Kerry is more going to be on the number side of things. Not that she doesn't care about culture, right?
Sure.
But it's what lens is somebody instantly looking at something through.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the discussion with Mike and Nicole last episode. I mean, they approached the acquisition from, just a spot that I never thought was, something you should do. But, after speaking with them, I realized how important bringing that cultural mesh together really does lend to you look at their company right now, it's one big company. It doesn't look like it's a bunch of pieces.
Nope.
I'm not sure what Kerry's perspective is, but I'm really excited about that. But I could easily see a scenario where people collect individual companies. And I would imagine if you look at things from a business or a numbers game, then you're looking at the numbers and not necessarily the culture, and you could end up in that scenario.
Right. And I think it's just your hierarchy of importance when you're approaching something. And not to take anything away from Nicole and Mike, they also, they didn't buy distressed assets, which I found interesting. That's not something that they would touch. Where to me, just I don't know, just maybe my ignorance, I always thought, like, oh, this thing's undervalued, and then I'm going to polish it up, and then I'm going to sell it or flip it or incorporate it into mine, and that's essentially why you do mergers and acquisitions.
Well, if you have the ability to resurrected. I mean, from just an investment perspective, there's a stock, a mutual fund called the Fallen Angels Fund, which is a collection of businesses that used to be just top of the line, but have just fallen on bad luck, and you can invest in them.
Really?
Yeah. So it's, they typically pay a higher dividend because they've fallen on bad times, but they once were dominant companies. And you're just hoping that you hope that they're going to return to that successful point that they were, but some people are failing because the times, the economy just changes, the market changes.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do.
And if you acquire one of those, it could take you down with you. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about grow yourself out of business. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I talked about that on one of the other podcasts when I was talking about the I think it was on one of the podcasts talking about the debt company.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people just grow too fast or grow themselves into, I mean, I guess the worst fear is that you take on this distressed asset and then it takes you away from your core focus.
Right.
And then your core customers are starting to complain, and then you start seeing it kind of crumble on it. That would be scary.
But I've never, I mean, like, and I agree with that, but I'm saying, maybe it's bravado, but what a way to go. Be like, I grew too fast. I mean, that's like, if you're going to go down, that's the way to go down with a smile, right?
Sure.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's my third time I did it. We just blew the company up in the best way possible.
Well, I mean, I meet a bunch of people that say things like that, and I walk away going, yeah, right, whatever.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I hear that story, and I'm like, I bet you tell that to everyone.
That's true. Like, hey, let's get your failure story right. Maybe there's a coach out there that preps people. No. This is the narrative, right?
Right.
We're going to roll with. But no, and I think that is a concern, right? You literally take on some turd and then you bring it into your, magical white palace, and everything gets a little bit messed up and dirty. Or some people use the terms like where you bring a cancer in. I know there's one company that you and I personally have talked about in the past where they acquired another company and it literally just dissolved and they did nothing with it, right? So it's like you're taking on a service line and you like have maybe all these hopes, dreams, and aspires. Maybe it's an acquire hire, and it's just a big waste of money. But also, what's the opportunity cost? The amount of time of due diligence and spending on it. I think that's something that maybe people don't know enough about.
Yeah, I think that's what scares a lot of people from even talking about acquiring other companies. I mean, when I first started talking about this topic, I always had in my head that I would rather be 10% owner of $1 million than 100% owner of 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the mentality of that. I know that Oyova is never going to become Facebook or IBM or Microsoft. I mean, that's the 1 in a million moonshot. And Zuckerberg and Bezos and Gates, they were the moon. They hit it. I'm fairly confident as a realist that that's not me. So if I'm going to achieve those kind of crazy big results, and it's going to be through mergers and acquisitions, it's going to be through joining forces with like-minded people and adding value. So that's why I'm so excited about this topic.
But yeah, I am as well. And with those other companies that you mentioned, a lot of those did acquire other companies and technologies. I just don't think it was as widely publicized. I also have a belief that none of those people thought they would be where they are today. And if any, and even take Zuckerberg or Bezos or whatnot, I can't imagine that they could envision where they are today. That's got to be pretty mind blowing. And to that last point, I think anybody that thinks that, I don't really think they're going to make it. Like, that is not a healthy personality trait,
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. Everything is going to get in your way.
Correct. And the people that I meet that have that mentality, they fail quickly and stumble quickly, and then their dream is crushed because they can't execute the basics. I mean, they're too visionary, I guess, right? I mean, there has to be, maybe that's why some partnerships like a Steve Jobs and a Wozniak really worked. You had the visionary that was crazy visionary, and then somebody to actually do it. Because without a Wozniak, Steve Jobs is just a futurist.
Right.
So
yeah. But he would have had nothing without Woz. Like, Woz created it.
Right,
like
exactly.
Literally, he would have just been some wacko on a street corner with a Casio calculator.
Right.
And a lot of the stars had to align, like with Zuckerberg, like with Bezos,
Right. And even the companies
and Tom
that
from Facebook.
Let's
not forget Tom.
What's that?
Tom from Facebook. Let's not forget Tom.
Or what's the twins? We wouldn't have.
Yeah, they got screwed.
Yeah,
the Sperrywinkle twins or something. Poor guys. I shouldn't laugh at that. But they got like a reality show or something now in there.
Yeah, they're big Bitcoin people now.
That's not working out for them. They got screwed again. Talking about the market taking a turn.
But even those large brands that acquire, I mean, Facebook's acquired Oculus, and Instagram and tons of those other companies, they really didn't start going on those acquisition sprees until they were already big. I mean, and they had a huge war chest. So, the smaller stories of just that continual acquisition and roll up is harder to read about because it's not as sexy. But I once worked for a company called RecruitMax that got acquired by a company called Taleo, which then got acquired by Oracle. And the end result, the end step was, wow, look at this Oracle, but who heard of RecruitMax? Nobody. And
Right.
barely who heard of Taleo.
Nobody. I didn't.
It was a large company. If you worked for it, you'd have been excited about, hey, Taleo, it's a big company. But to the outside world, it just wasn't one of those sexy brands. But that roll-up story is actually the more realistic acquisition story for companies like us.
Yeah, I agree. And not necessarily a private equity play, which I think is a whole nother conversation. But as always, let's go ahead and get Kerry in here and have her explain this world that she lives in, because she knows a hell of a lot more about it than you and I. All right, here we go. Thank you for joining us today on The Climb. And thank you for joining us, Kerry McClenahan.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And I got my partner in climb, as always, David McGraw.
How's it going?
Hey.
So before we get into everything, I'd like to give listeners an overview of your climb. That's essentially your story and how you got here. And feel free to stop me if any of this stuff isn't accurate. Eastern Washington grad. You've had a decorated marketing career and founded an agency, McBrew, which was acquired in 2018. Now you're the president of Publitek North America with a team of 85, where your agency works with clients such as DuPont, Sony, and CDW, and you currently reside in Portland, Oregon.
That is all correct.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And here's another little thing that we do on the show. So everyone has tools that support them. And in this segment, it's essentially, what's in your backpack, right? So what are the tools that, Kerry uses to operate? So this isn't so much agency focused. Last week I did that, and I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed, with the way that I delivered the questions, and I think it kind of fumbles it up. But I want to know you personally, right? So we're just going to fire through these things. Ready?
Okay.
Are you iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
All right. PC or Mac?
Mac.
All
I'm
right.
a total Apple fangirl.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So this next question is interesting. So when it comes to email, Office 365, Gmail, or something else?
Gmail. But
Okay.
I use the Apple Mail app.
Do you?
I
Okay.
do. Very
All
old
right.
school.
All right, that's cool. Gmail has a really good app too. If you've thought about stepping out on that app, Gmail's as well. And I also have an iPhone that I use it with. So
Yeah. Okay.
what about note taking?
I take very few notes.
What? You just like an awesome capacity for memory?
I do. I'm lucky that I can remember kind of the essential points of most conversations. But when I need to, let's say, make a list, I do use Google Keep.
Okay, Google Keep. All right, gotcha. All right. So other than that, can you explain a little bit about your role with Publitek? I want to set a good base and foundation there.
Absolutely. So Publitek is a global agency. We're headquartered in the UK, just outside of London. We have offices in Germany, in Japan, and in North America. And my job is to run the North American operation.
Okay. All right. That sounds like it's an easy task. What would you say to that?
Well, I'll tell you, when you sell your agency and you have to have a boss for the first time in 25 years, it really helps that he's several thousand miles away.
We'll take some hundreds in that. All right. That's interesting. So are you responsible for sales and marketing as well? Everything under the sun as far as North America is concerned?
Yeah. So in many ways, it's no different than it was when I ran my own agency. I just don't own it now, but I still run this business. And then I also am on the board of Publitek and serve on the global leadership team.
Okay. So you have specific measurement requirements that you need to meet based on this role and function.
I do.
So you were acquired. That came out of the blue though, right? That wasn't something you were looking for?
No, it was not. And I think the first time we chatted, I mentioned that I had been approached 7 times in 25 years to potentially get acquired. And I guess lucky number 7, it finally made sense to me, and we went forward, and here we are.
Wow. So with the other 7, were there any in there that were like just ridiculous requests that weren't met ethically or something, or?
No, it was really more a matter of fit. I will say, so the very first agency that approached us was early on. I think McBrew was only about 4 or 5 years old. And once they learned more about us, and the fact that we were really full service, not just a PR firm like they were like, oh, sorry, just kidding. And then the other 6 were a combination of either the cultural fit wasn't right, or what they envisioned our team taking on inside their new organization wasn't right. There was one case where this particular agency worked with some clients that I knew I could never in good conscience ask my team to work on, Monsanto, et cetera.
Yeah.
So just, we're a bunch of flaming liberals up here in Oregon. So there's just no way my team would have accepted that kind of assignment.
Dave, before we merged, you were, if I'm not mistaken, approached by somebody that thought you were too profitable to buy. Like, he didn't understand why you wanted to sell, right?
Right. I mean, I had, the owner benefit number, I guess, scared him away, thinking that he would never be able to come up with a number that would convince me. So I think he just stopped the process there. And I ended up reaching out after that and just asked him, what happened? Why didn't we go forward? He's like, I just assumed there was nothing I would say that you would say yes to. And I go, I was ready to become a big piece of something bigger than myself, and you missed out on that opportunity.
Wow, that is a really challenging problem to have, mister. You were too profitable.
Yeah.
I know. I think it kind of leads into your current role. So currently, are you're acquiring other agencies, right? Based on
we are actually looking to acquire in North America.
So so let's look at some like value points. Like what is it that you are looking for? Maybe one of our 7 listeners will fit that.
Yeah, so first and foremost, the agency has to be in the tech B2B space.
Okay.
I think one of the things that differentiates Publitek, and I actually think one of the reasons McBrew was a target for several agencies when they were looking to acquire, is that specialty focus. So, being exclusively in the tech B2B space.
Would you say, just to stop you, like that specialty specifically, like the tech B2B space, or just a specialty, like that specialty? Does that make sense?
I think for us, certainly what we're looking for in an acquisition target is specifically tech B2B. But I think in general, for agencies that aspire to sell at some point, having a specialty focus can make you much more valuable. So that is one of the things that can add to your multiple if the formula, the traditional sort of agency acquisition formula applies. Sorry, I'm just turning off a couple of apps that are going to make noises at us.
You're good. I go through it all the time on each one of these.
So there is this notion of there's a multiple of EBITDA that is a common formula that's used, and the multiple can be anywhere from 3x to 5x. And when you have a specialty, it can be one of the variables that increases that multiple beyond 5x to, some other number.
Got it. So so I don't know how many acquisitions you've done. Like, what is the biggest multiple that you've seen?
I actually haven't done my own acquisition. Was my first. So
really?
Yeah. And now I'm looking to do my second and be on the other side of the table.
Okay. All right. And so based on what we understand now, it's a B2B company in the tech space, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And it's got to be a marketing agency, of course. Otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Okay. So in your opinion, then, how do you build an agency worth buying?
Well, it's interesting. You've probably heard this term before, but I saw a presentation, I think maybe 10 years ago or so, from a firm that basically brokers agency deals. Mm-hmm. And they came in and presented to an agency group I belong to, and they talked about the difference between being a lifestyle firm and a growth firm. Mm-hmm. And it was a total revelation to me because I had no idea I had been running my agency as a lifestyle firm, basically. And, they talked about this notion of really maximizing your value. And that has more facets than just your revenue and profit margin, which of course is the obvious one. But it's also establishing your differentiation. And that's what I was talking about before, the notion of being a specialist in a certain area. It doesn't have to be the market you focus on. Maybe it's the discipline that your agency offers. But really working on your differentiation and positioning, and then working on having excellent processes, right? Being disciplined and operating your business with rigor, which, let's face it, most of us who start agencies come out of agencies, and we're really good at being creative, and we're maybe good at marketing, and most of us didn't really study business before we started our firms. And, so there is a little bit of, okay, these processes that maybe worked fine at a certain size need to be reevaluated when you're trying to really position yourself for a sale.
So, and that brings up a couple things for me. One is dealing with a lot of people that are romantic about their business, right? And they think that it's, they're completely different. Everybody else doesn't have these problems. And the more that they get under the business side of things, really, whether it's procedural or, monetization, looking at, P&Ls, so on and so forth, and making sure they're making profits, they're taking away from that other side of it. Have you had any experience either with yourself in dealing with that or others?
Sure. I mean, how many agency owners, small agencies, have you heard the owner talk about, well, our team it's really like a family? It's not a family. Yeah. You're coworkers, and maybe you have terrific culture and shared values and great camaraderie, but you're not actually family, and it is a business, and we are in business to, meet our business objectives, doing great work for our clients, being profitable, growing our revenues, operating with excellence.
Yeah. I came from a family business, and when somebody says like a family, like it wasn't a good family. I mean, there was a lot of venom on that.
There can be some downsides to family.
Yeah, it's like, I'll do everything but kill you. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's what family business means to me. And then, something else too, I think is important that I learned. I remember I had a professor in college. I don't know how many times the guy was divorced, but he said, he's like, never get married to an idea, a concept, or anything. And meaning, if you get so attached to something that you can't separate yourself from it, it's never going to turn out the way that either A, it should, or B, you want it to. Right. And that's something, with merging my agency, with Dave's, we became one. That's something that I looked at, like, all right, yeah, I'm not married to it. And granted, I have values and goals and all those other things, but I think it's that greater piece of what we want to accomplish as a whole, and putting two things together that, is that, which now is almost cliche, the sum greater than all of its parts.
Yeah. I feel very much the same. Looking at the deal with Publitek, it was the first time that I thought, wow, this could actually be a really good fit. In the other conversations I had, some of them went pretty far. One of them went all the way through, getting a term sheet. But most of them I knew early on, this doesn't feel like a fit. There's not enough synergy between the businesses, between the culture, between our values, to make this a longer term success.
So, go ahead, Dave.
What was one of the things during that 7 offer process that surprised you the most? Starting from the beginning where you had no experience in it and going through all the way to the end. What was the most surprising aspect of it?
Well, I think the amount of the time suck, frankly. I had no idea how completely it takes over your life for that period of time when you're engaged in the process. And it can, it's often several months, and particularly when you're deep into due diligence, it's an enormous amount of work and time. And I really wasn't prepared for that. Luckily, I had a fantastic team that picked up the slack when I was busy with lawyers and, doing all that work. But it is, I wish I had known. I'm not sure it would have made a difference because you can't avoid the process, but it's very time consuming.
What did your team feel during, what was their disposition during this? Because, they're obviously, their leader has gone through 7 opportunities to sell. I mean, they obviously were on board, right?
Well, they didn't know about very many of them. I mean, the ones that weren't going to go anywhere, I didn't bring up because it just sort of seemed like a moot point. And, my experience is in the absence of information, people will make things up in their minds to make it make sense. And I didn't want the team, especially, but in my case, I didn't go looking to sell. That was not what I was trying to do. These offers all came to me. So I didn't want to bring the team into that and have them think that I was just out, constantly looking to sell the agency. I thought that might feel unsettling to them.
Yeah.
Might make them feel a little bit like, God, what's our future?
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until, I think I brought up one of the earlier opportunities and also was really candid with them as soon as it seemed clear it wasn't going to fit. But with Publitek, as we went through the process, once it became pretty certain it was going to be a done deal, and it was just a matter of going through all of that due diligence and all of the, the sort of dotting of I's and crossing of T's, I did sit the team down and talk to them, and I talked to them about the opportunity that was in it for them, and they got really excited.
Did you keep all of them?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's huge. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and we've grown the team since, and we're again hopefully through acquisition, but also focused really on organic growth. We're hoping to expand the team. We actually have 2 positions open right now, although I think we got one of them accepted, so that's awesome.
Right on. Fingers crossed. Knock on some wood.
Yes.
Bringing somebody else to the family.
Yeah. I'll say to the team. We're a very tight-knit team over here. In fact, when our colleagues from the other offices come through North America, they try to make a point of coming to stay in Portland for a few days and work with us. And I get feedback all the time about what an amazing group this is and how not only do I have really talented individuals, but the way that we work together is kind of special and different from the other offices. And I don't know if that's a US culture thing or if it's our own little secret sauce here.
Before I start pounding my chest saying it's a U.S. thing, like where would you say it compares to like other agencies? Is there something that sticks out to you based on what your agency does that others might not?
There is this sense for, I guess everybody goes for the loose ball around here, right? So if somebody sees something that a colleague needs help with or that a client is asking for and nobody else has jumped on it, they do, whether it's their responsibility or not, right? I heard from a former Intel executive this term of assume responsibility. So you see something that needs doing, you either take care of it or you find the person who needs to take care of it. But you don't walk by it as if it doesn't exist. And I think that's part of our culture.
That's going to be one of our new core values.
Yeah, it's great because your teammates have your back. That one thing we say is that there is no mistake any one of us can make that we can't collectively recover from. So that also frees people up to try stuff and to know that their colleagues are there. And I think it builds trust and it makes work more fun.
So how did you instill that? Do you have like set core values or do you think this is something that's just, you were lucky and it's organically formed kind of around you based on the people you've hired?
We do have set core values, but I think what's really important is it has to start with the leader and the leadership team. You have to exemplify that behavior. And, if the trash needs to be taken out and I see it, I'll take care of it. It's like, we're all in this together and there truly is no job that's too small for me or hopefully for anyone on the team. But I think when they see me operating that way and the other members of the leadership team operating that way, that's how you instill the culture. I don't think it's something you can write down on a whiteboard and say, this is how we're going to be.
Yeah.
They have to see it in action to say, oh, I want to be like that.
So taking out the trash, I think that's a fantastic example. After Kerry takes out that trash, does she then send an email down by the dumpster that says, Randy, why didn't you take out the trash? Or is it just like, because I guess I go, am I going to take out the trash 3 times? Don't get me wrong. I do it as well, but that's the thought. Like, do I need to mention this to somebody?
Absolutely. And so
Okay.
the other thing that we really believe in is not just taking accountability, but holding each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this framework we use of things are working or they're not working. Mm-hmm. And it tends to depersonalize it, right? Mm-hmm. So if Randy, the trash emptier, has missed 3 times, then it's, hey, Randy, there's a problem here. What's going on? This is not working. And then, Randy has a chance to say, oh my gosh, well, here's the problem. Here's why I haven't been able to do this. And then we have a conversation about, okay, next time you need to ask for help.
It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's what works and doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. And you're the second agency we've spoke to that is in Portland, and we've had a lot of agencies on this now, and it seems like this glowing love for the people that, for the agencies in Portland. Are you from Portland? Is that why that is? I'm just trying to dissect it. I've been to Portland. I had a good time. I mean, I wasn't hugged on the streets by strangers or anything.
So I have been here over 30 years. So I think that makes me a naturalized Oregonian. And I don't know. I hear what you're saying. There definitely is a vibe in Portland. People are genuinely nice to each other. Kind of almost like we're Canadians. I don't know. Anyway, I think for me though, it's actually the opposite of what we were talking about earlier about people who think their agencies are families.
Yeah.
Because I started out that way. And I remember after I lost a really talented person, and I was really emotional when she told me she was leaving. And she looked me in the eye and said, Kerry, it's not personal, it's business. We're not your family. Yeah.
Wow.
And it just was I am so grateful to her for saying that, because it really sort of flipped a switch for me where I thought I am taking all this way too personally. Yeah. And it's not, it's business. It's not personal. And so then I looked for ways to still take care of each other, still collaborate, still be close and laugh and have fun together, but also keep that sort of separation in my mind that it's really not personal. And so that's why we adopted that working, not working framework, which by the way, we've used with clients as well. Because we had one client that became borderline abusive to the team. And gave feedback in a really unpleasant way. Mm-hmm. Definitely that sort of, if you remember the stories about early Intel culture of constructive confrontation, which was never constructive and always confrontational. That client was like that. And we finally said, this isn't acceptable. This isn't working for us. And so we'd like to recommend in our weekly status calls from now on, the last 10 minutes of the call, we're going to spend time talking about what's working and what's not working. And they were a little like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But they agreed. And within a few weeks, the whole relationship dynamic had shifted.
Really?
Yeah, because they had a forum built in to talk about it. And because we used this working, not working, they stopped being nasty in their feedback and started being more matter of fact about, oh, I guess this is not working, as opposed to, why didn't you do this, And it shifted the whole relationship.
Sounds a little. I love because we use a similar term. It's like direct but gentle, right? Say give information, but be gentle about it. You don't have to be really strict. And to me, I was expecting you to say something at the end of that call. It was like Seinfeld's Festivus feats of strength, where everybody just goes for it. But the terminology, the language you're using, is that from somewhere else, or did you create the what's working and what's not?
Actually, it's from a leadership coach that I worked with years ago, who was fantastic. I always say, I led a business for about 14 years until I worked with her, and then I became a leader.
Wow. Okay.
She taught me all kinds of constructs that once she would explain them, I'd be like, of course. Why didn't I already know that? But that was one of them that she brought, and I've been grateful ever since.
Okay. Yeah, because I've heard that from somewhere else, and lots of people have heard it from different places. I got it through a leadership program myself, so it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So you remove the morality and emotionality out of something, and it's just like, okay, this is what's going on right now.
Exactly.
And yeah, I love that. All right. So where do you? This is one I want to ask. I asked this last week as well to another agency. Would you buy a distressed asset if it felt right for your agency insofar as an acquisition?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, say more about that.
There would be a lot of factors to think about, but first of all, what caused the distress situation, right?
Yeah.
And if the fundamental business is sound and the talent is sound, and there are enough existing clients that seem to be stable, people can just frankly screw up, make mistakes, let a client get to be too big a percentage of their revenue, and then they lose that client, and all of a sudden they're in a world of hurt. Those are things that, when you know how to manage a business to avoid those, that's not scary. Like, it wouldn't be scary to me to run across an agency owner that had that exact situation. This client grew to be too big. We lost the client. Now we're in a distressed situation.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. We spoke to somebody else, and they weren't looking at that. So that's refreshing, because Dave and I, when we're looking at some assets, and some of them are distressed based on some potential companies that we might take on. So last week we're on a podcast, and they're like, no, we would never do that. We're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I have the benefit of having people who are way smarter and more experienced with acquisitions behind me. So
Yeah.
I think we chatted, John, we're owned by Next 15 Group.
Yep.
They own about 18 agencies around the world. Terrific holding company. I really appreciate them. They have a legal team and a finance team that knows this stuff inside and out, because that's what they do for a living, right? As acquire agency.
Right.
So, when we look at potential targets, I've got the head of legal for North America sitting in the room with me, asking some questions that I wouldn't know to ask, et cetera. So I don't think they'd let me go too far down the wrong path. So I kind of have a safety net built in.
And I also think it's like risk tolerances, right? Like, everybody has different investment strategies, the way they want to go about it. And some people want to take, a winning concept and enhance it, and make it that much better. I think others can look at a problem and see what's missing and say, all right, if we literally put that one cog in there, this thing that, we paid, $10,000 for is now worth $100,000, right? That's a 10x situation.
That is, I think I fall in the latter camp for sure.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Did somebody fall? I just heard like a ching sound.
I think some glasses were dropped in the kitchen.
All right. So this brings up the next question. So you're familiar with the WPP situation?
Tell me more. I know what WPP is, but was there a current?
Well, the agency. So they essentially acquired, and then now they're like at a point where their value isn't as much as it should be, right?
Ah, yes.
So based on a point like that, I guess what I'm trying to see, like, do you foresee, like, I guess, what would you do to prevent something like that from happening?
I suppose there is a point of diminishing returns. I'm not sure it'd be easy for us to get there at Publitek, because we are such a specialty firm. There's only a finite number of acquisitions over time that are going to make sense in any particular geo, because there aren't all that many tech B2B specialty firms.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're limited by your market.
But the market is, in terms of the market we serve, is certainly big enough for us to go quite a distance before we run into that diminishing returns.
With technology.
So exactly. I think the limiting factor is going to be finding the right agencies to bring in, what's the total available market for us out there.
And I don't know if you can say, are these like pure like cash buys? Are they finance buys? Do you have like a war chest that you guys work with? I don't know if you can speak to that, and if you don't want to, that's fine.
Yeah, I can only speak in generalities, because our parent company is publicly traded, and so I can't talk a lot about that, but I can say I am aware that there are several different acquisition types that we have made or could make, from the kind of traditional model we talked about earlier, where there's a sort of formula built on a multiple of EBITDA, to, all the way at the other end of the spectrum, what people call an acqui-hire, where it's really just a terrifically talented person or two that you're just kind of buying them. And then in between, there's other variants, from an asset sale to, probably loads that I don't know about, but I'm aware of at least those three.
So I spoke with this was a few years back, another agency owner that said the worst type of acquisition is an acqui-hire. It's the riskiest. What would you say to that?
Well, I suppose so, because you're putting all your chips on that one person. And as we know, first of all, people come and go. You can lock them in with a contract for a certain period of time, but if for some reason it doesn't work, they're going to be miserable, and they're not going to perform to the levels that you expected when you acqui-hired them. Yeah. So I can see why that would be the case, that it could be the riskiest.
Okay. Didn't know if you had any experience
putting all your chips on one
or
marker.
Just even a team, right? Like, let's say it's a team, you're just acquiring that whole team, and I think that was his failed situation that he did based on an agency that I was aware of. So where do you think agencies and or even companies are missing out when it comes to marketing today?
Well, of course, my experience is all in the tech sector, so this might not apply in other markets. But in tech, people tend to be there's a siloed mentality where they think about isolated marketing issues. Like, okay, here's how I'm trying to tune and enhance my performance in my digital programs. And here's how I'm trying to work on my PR programs. And here's how I'm trying to, make my advertising better. As opposed to looking holistically at what's the business problem we're trying to solve here? What are our overarching sort of business-driven objectives that marketing needs to take on? And then instead of looking at it in that kind of siloed way, instead of saying, for instance, if you do media buying and a client comes to you with a problem, that's the only answer you're going to give them because it's all you know. Right. So looking more holistically about what's the right solution, not what's the one I'm looking at this moment. So I guess opening the aperture and looking at marketing challenges in a more holistic way, as opposed to being more siloed by discipline. I think that's a weakness I see fairly regularly in my space.
I couldn't agree with you more. Dave and I talk about this all the time. Where do you said you've been doing this for 30 years or something, right? So you've seen this evolution. Where do you think that spawned from? Because I think this is more of a newer problem.
Well, in the tech sector, even the marketing folks often come up through engineering. So there is this, engineers do tend to think about things in compartments. And unless you're a systems engineer, and then you might have a bigger view. But I think in the tech sector, it's because that's a natural way for them to think. And, parsing the problem into the pieces that the various specialty engineers or specialty developers can tackle. The other thing that's interesting working in the tech sector is now that marketing has so much more data available to inform decisions, it's really easy to get lost in the data weeds because, engineers love data. And so even marketers, I think these days love data too, because it helps us do our job better, but it can spiral into, minutia pretty easily.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think a lot of it has to do with the like the HubSpots of the world and these other platforms that have educated people on, like, oh, hey, here's this one way. This is how everything's supposed to go. Everybody globs onto that. They all start doing it this one way, and it creates this silo effect. And if everybody's doing the exact same thing, nothing is going to be effective, right? Because it's just noise at that point. So I love the holistic view, which I couldn't agree with more.
I think it's interesting too, the marketing automation platforms I could count on one hand how many clients I've had over the years that fully utilize those programs. Like, I can't tell you how many people have Marketo or Eloqua and use it for emails and landing pages. It's like, that's a very expensive way to manage your emails and landing pages, but it leaves so much on the table.
I agree. I completely. Dave, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just on that point of the engineer mindset. You know, as an engineer myself, the thought that the phrase that comes to my mind immediately is, what is the saying? If you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's no matter the problem. If you go to a PHP developer and say, how do we solve this? They're going to come up with a PHP solution. And, everyone in the tech is that's, I can't blame them. They want to solve the problem. People want to be a problem solver.
Yeah.
So, it does take a special elevated thought to say, how do we best position the solution using the best tools we've got, not just what we're comfortable with.
Yeah. I didn't know you were an engineer, Dave. That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about working with technology companies and with engineers and developers is because they're so creative and they are wired to solve problems. And that's I see marketing as being the same.
I'm an engineer too, then. Yeah.
No, that's why the merger with me and Jon made so much sense. Is we felt like we were on two opposites. He's on the sales side. I'm on the engineering side. I mean, I still code every day. It's what I'm passionate about, and solving problems for customers. Like, I love solving problems beyond just coming up with an idea, but actually getting into the code and doing it. So that's why that made a lot of sense for us. And I think people that code, like I just anyone I look at myself as a problem solver first, and what I do with that after is random.
Yep. And I would say the exact same thing. I look at myself as a problem solver first, but I can't solve it with code.
Right.
I can only solve it with marketing strategy and really solid execution.
So I've really enjoyed having this skill set as a business owner, because I don't rely on anyone to create reports for me. Like, I can extract data and write my own code and do my own assignments. And I've got some really cool reports that when I'm geeking out about it and talking about it to other people, they're just like, so you have some reports? Like, they do so much. They do so much logic, and it's more like an algorithm and figures, I love that stuff. It really allows me to geek out on numbers.
Yeah, but it sounds like you two also have a really nice balance between you and I think that's important. My former co-founder of McBrew was the same. We had really different strengths and weaknesses and really balanced each other well.
Did you buy out your partner?
I did. He decided to go pursue his passion about 13, 14 years in.
What was his passion?
Working in sustainability.
Oh,
and,
okay. Cool.
Thank God
Oregon.
Well, and thank God that he and other people like him are passionate about that. I wish more of us were. But he had the sort of the wisdom to see that it wouldn't make sense to try to take our existing tech B2B agency and turn it into a sustainability business. And, so he sort of graciously said, I think I need to go and pursue this other interest. And it was really crazy. I was terrified at first because I thought we had sort of divided up the client roster, and not that we personally managed all of them, but one of us looked after at a high level every client on the roster and had relationships. And I thought, oh my God, he's leaving. Half the clients are going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out to meet with each of the clients and share the news. And we discussed it between us that it needed to be me, not him, going to have that conversation with them, since I would be the one sticking around running the business. And to a person, they were like, what's he going to do? And I'd tell them and they'd be like, oh, wow, that's so great. So about this project we're working on. And it was such a good lesson in the fact that no one is irreplaceable. No one.
I love that. Yeah, because that's a big fear a lot of people have. Oh, if I lose, Karen or Jake, what's going to happen?
That's exactly it. And it really did take a lot of that fear away from me. of course, you never want to lose your top talent, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that it is not the big threat that we think it is.
So it's the same thing that we encounter with, we recently just had our largest historical client pretty much disappear. And it was kind of a managed process, but like I was able to brag yesterday that we are sitting here in January, numbers pretty much wrapping up for the month. And this is the first real month that we don't have really much exposure to this giant client that we've had. And it didn't even affect us at all. And it's lessons like that and losing big time employees that you know, any other time 2 years ago, if you'd have told me this client was going away, I'd have been like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And now to be able to survive that and say, hey, we're still here, we're still strong, that's great. It's the same with employees. When you've got that one employee that is, you know, you feel like, oh my God, you can't lose them. It's almost liberating if they do leave and you can come back through the other side and you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And by the way, kudos to you for losing a big client and doing it without putting your business at risk, because that is definitely a challenge agencies have. And, you know, we try to ensure that no one client is more than 10% of revenue and try to have that distributed client base. But, you know, when clients are growing and want to keep doing more and more work with you, it's hard to say, no, thanks, don't give us any more money.
Yeah.
The unique thing about this client that is such a success story for us is that, you know, we work with a lot of startups and a lot of, you know, other agencies and other companies. And we basically grew this company to the point where it became really attractive to get acquired, and they just got acquired. And so it feels like they were graduating. You know, it's a success story. It's like they're not going away because, you know, we failed or the market's changed, or they're going away because we did such a good job.
Right. I've been there. It's interesting. You know, it's very bittersweet when your work with a client helps their valuation increase to the point where, you know, they walk away with a really nice paycheck and you're left without the client.
True.
It's bittersweet.
Yeah. All right. It is bittersweet. And I'm happy that we don't have to talk about that client anymore. No, it was a good client, but it was one of those things. It was a very stressful thing because when you see something like that come in, just the way that it affects emotions. If something is not going wrong, if something is going awry with that account, it reverberates through the rest of the company.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that, you know, you treat, you know, all these other like smaller clients or when everything's even like a Bic lighter after, you know, it doesn't light, you just throw it to the ground.
Right.
But it's less of an impact on the company as a whole if something isn't going well with them, because it's like, okay, it's not working out or whatever it is. It's not, hey, the lights aren't going to be on tomorrow and all of you people are losing your jobs. And I think removing that gravity from a situation is super healthy.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. So is there anything I didn't cover that the world should know? Are you peddling or promoting anything? Like this is yours. You can do whatever you want with it.
All right. Well, for all of you small to mid-sized tech B2B agencies out there that think you would like to be part of a bigger global organization, definitely look me up. I'm actively looking for this North American acquisition, and would absolutely love to have lots of conversations with lots of cool agencies and see where that goes.
Right on. And how would these people get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find.
Okay.
But they also can email me at kerry.mclenahan@publitek.com.
Boom, boom, boom. All right. Anything else? Like, hey, you didn't ask about fill in the blank.
Gosh, I think it feels like we talked about a lot of different things. So
Okay.
it was really fun talking with you guys. I always like trading war stories. And
I know. Thank you so much for joining us. You were fantastic.
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks,
All
Kerry.
right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right, James, how do you think that went?
Well, I think that was great. Super informative. Loved her approach on, just about everything. Like I really felt, you know, that's exactly how I would approach an acquisition. And I love how she said she got offered 7 previous, you know, opportunities and then worked through them. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was 6 opportunities, and this is
Yeah.
the 7th one. Lucky number 7. No, she's a fabulous person. I thought I thought there was like tons of acquisitions that were done in there. Maybe I misunderstood, but yeah, I think it's fantastic what she's done, and I'm pretty confident she's going to make another acquisition that's only going to add value to Publitek. What I love, though, and it's something I know I've talked about, which is the what's works and doesn't work, and how
Yeah.
small mechanisms like that can just have these great, strong effects throughout an organization.
Well, I kind of wanted to ask you. You brought up Cam earlier. He just went through, and he was telling us about the employee-owned structure that he was moving towards.
Yeah, right.
So he just completed that. I saw him release an article about that. So congratulations to our number 2 episode.
Oh, that's right. A little
Cam.
plug there, Cameron Medill.
But I was going to ask her about during that family discussion. I was like, what happens when everyone owns a fraction of the business? And you're like, no, we're not family. You've got to be family at that point because you are married.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, work wives and work husbands. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe we can do it as a follow-up, send it over to her, and get her feedback.
Right.
But other than that, I thought it was a fantastic episode, and look forward to the next time we get to chat with her.
Yeah, it was great. Good work.
Awesome. Likewise, brother. All right. Other than that, my friend, I will talk to you real soon.
Keep climbing.
Keep climbing.
That's right.